Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. What?
Should I have? You just said it was terrible.
You've never seen it?
No, and now I don't think I will.
You have to see it. You just have to see it.
Why? I don't want...
1994. This was what's her name from the what was that crazy show with
Lara
the
Flynn
little
Boyle?
Yes, little Lara Flynn. But what else was she in? It was that crazy show where they were looking for Twin Peaks. You're with me. She was in that movie with Josh Charles.
Yeah,
Threesome. Stephen Baldwin. It was a Baldwin movie. Oh, I can't believe you've never seen that.
I think I'm better off for not having seen that.
Oh, no. Well, I can't judge that.
You just told me it was awful.
It's not great, but it was definitive in our sort of college years. I can't believe. It's great.
Well, I will say.
This is what it means. I thought I knew what it was when Steve Jobs passed away. And again, when Robin Williams passed away, what a disturbance of the force really felt like. This is it, that Andy Nelson hasn't seen Threesome.
Wow. That's the real shocker of the year. That and Joan Rivers all on the same day.
Oh, man. Really? That was too soon. It was not a laugh line.
Joan would appreciate it.
She was, oh man, someone posted a line on, speaking of too soon, when her husband committed suicide. Did you see this?
No.
Like she went out to dinner with her daughter. I have a hard time believing it was like the night of, but the way it was portrayed, it was the night of. And she went out to dinner and they opened the menu, and after a minute she said if he was still around to come eat dinner with us, he would have looked at these prices and killed himself again. Horrible. She was a talent, that woman. She was a true showman, in the purest sense of the word.
She certainly had a sense of humor, and
yes.
I think the best part about her was that she was perfectly willing to turn that around on herself.
Yes. She is one of those characters that I didn't think would ever pass.
Yeah, I wasn't sure she'd be able to.
Our thoughts are definitely with her family. That's another in a row. And Andy Nelson hasn't seen Threesome.
Right up there.
Oh, that's grim. How's your week? Are you feeling okay? Are you crawling out from under it a little bit?
No.
Oh, good talk, though.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has been good, and I have been diligently plugging away with Game of Thrones. So I'm still making time for the important things.
Where are you now? Tell me.
We finished season 3, so we made it through the Red Wedding.
Oh, how'd you do? How'd your wife do?
She's one of those people who can have a hard time with wanting to know the end of the book, and so she had already gone to the internet to read about what the Red Wedding was, so it wasn't much of a surprise for her.
That's too bad. That's a cheat.
But it certainly was a surprise for me, and I mean, I had kind of guessed as to something that was going to happen, but it certainly was a little bigger than I was expecting it to be.
Right? It's a gift, though, when you see that unspoiled.
Yes.
And that's why I don't want to talk about any more of it, but it really is. It's a gift, because I know there are people who are still catching up. So.
Yeah,
but it is a gift. I'm excited that you are catching up,
and I'm starting to read the books now too.
Oh, so good for you!
Really getting into it.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still cruising through, waiting for that next Jack Reacher movie.
Oh,
I'm on like book 10 now.
Holy cow!
Yeah, that's serious, because I think there are 172 books that he's written in the series. They just don't seem to end ever, and so far, I can't seem to get tired of them. Wow, I'm digging that character. So,
what book series is the longest running? I mean, 172 seems
that's because I'm
big.
I'm being wildly sarcastic. That was me being.
I was going to say, wow.
Not apparently.
I thought you had some great statistic in front of you. I'm like, that is one busy author.
Apparently, I'm not hyperbolic enough for you.
No, took that line and went hook, line, and sinker. Yes, I did.
That's pretty good.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, that was 172. That's incredible. What? No, in truth, there are 19. There are 19 Jack Reacher movies, including Jack Reacher books, including a number of short stories that he's also written. And this is the series by Lee Child, which is a pen name for Jim Grant. And so I've gotten through the one that they made the first movie out of, which was book 9.
Right, one shot.
Yeah, and so I'm on to the hard way.
Oh,
yeah, that's good. It's good series. It's good. It's
good
a page turner. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's...
You want to tell the people where we're from?
Yeah, where are we from?
Yeah, everybody, it's The Next Reel. I'm Pete Wright. That there's Andy Nelson.
Howdy.
And we spoil movies. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you putting your movie spoilage needs in our capable hands. You should head over to thenextreel.com. You can catch up with all the news of the show, catch up on back episodes. Boy, are there a ton of back episodes. And, get ready for our upcoming Film Board special edition new release. Gang of Thugs is getting together in just a couple weeks. We're going to talk about something new and exciting and a classic at the same time. In the meantime, Andrew, how are we doing this week on the Instagram Guess the Movie #Pony Prize Challenge, Andy versus the People?
You know, I think I did good for myself after getting stomped last week.
Walloped.
Trounced.
Spanked.
Yeah, there's many a verb that one could apply to what happened last week. Yes, but no, this week, I picked some good images from Cinema Paradiso, Giuseppe Tornatore's fantastic film about the love of film. And I made it 5 images in before Alexander C. Curran figured it out.
You did a heck of a job, Andy. I'm not kidding. You did a heck of a job on the Pony Prize this week. You got to feel a little bit redeemed.
I do feel like I kind of redeemed myself a little bit. 5 images I think is a pretty good run. So
yeoman's work.
Congratulations to Alexander C. Curran. You're entered to win our Pony Prize.
Oh,
and, we're doing the drawing for that sometime later this year.
It is, and we've got many pieces in place pulling together this year's Pony Prize. So. Speaking of other things that are coming up, we've got the next Listener's Choice is coming up.
That's right.
I don't know how that's coming soon.
It's coming, it's early November, I think, is the next Listener's Choice.
So here's why we're bringing this up so early, is because it's early September right now, and if you want to get into the running to be able to pick a movie that we talk about on this show, we would love you to do it. We'd love to hear why you think your favorite movie should be included in our list of Next Reel films. So what you have to do to enter into that particular drawing is just leave us a comment. Head over to iTunes, to the Next Reel page on iTunes or Facebook. Leave us a nice comment on one of these places, but particularly iTunes. I'm going to be honest with you. iTunes, it's the devil you know, right? It's that's the place where if people search for movie reviews, the higher reviewed, more commented shows always show up higher, and we would love to show up to more people, and so it would really help us out. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a kind comment. You'll be doing your country a favor, and us, and people that you've never met, who have never heard this show but really need to. That's my pitch. Do it for your country.
I feel like I should have been humming the national anthem behind that.
The only thing I have you humming is The Blob, so I'll put that in there.
Almost the same thing.
And so that would be really helpful, and you'll enter this little drawing here. We'd love to get you on the show, and that's how it works, right? If you'll join us on the show, you will give us a little, you'll join me and Andy on a call, and we'll talk for a few minutes about why you think this movie is so important right before we get into the big review. So
Look forward to that.
We're going to be doing the drawing on our October 17th show. So make sure you get your your comments to us before the 16th.
Yes, do that. All right. In other news, before we get into trailers, here I've got a special insert here. Are you ready? I've done an interview. I know it's so rare. I have a very dear old friend who attended the Telluride Film Festival. She was our eyes on the street, and boy, did her eyes do double duty. She saw a ton of movies, and she joined us for this conversation earlier today. And I offer it here. This is Mary Friedrichs, friend of the show, movie fan, talking about her favorite films from Telluride. Here you go. Okay, I can't tell you how excited I am that we actually have eyes on the street at the Telluride Film Festival. Mary Friedrichs, thank you so much for joining for a brief review of all the fantastic films that you saw in Telluride.
This is my pleasure. It was my first Telluride, and I'm just very excited to be able to talk about it.
Excellent. So there were a lot of notable films at this festival, and you have picked 6 that we're going to talk about in a little bit of depth. But the first one that we're explicitly not going to talk about is the first one I'm going to ask you a question about. Why don't you want to talk about Foxcatcher?
Well, there's several reasons. One, the most important is that I didn't see it. But the reason that I didn't see it, because it was certainly on my list to see when we were going in, because it had so much buzz,
sure,
is that the people I talked to thought it was overly long, and the B word, boring, was heard by several people. And one person said that it lacked a theme which would help explain all the various events as they unfold, and it just didn't cohere. Although I also understand that Steve Carell was wonderful in terms of his acting, but it didn't sound like a movie I wanted to see.
Well, I've got to tell you, I'm obviously disappointed in that. It's one that we've been very excited about. I'm disappointed that the buzz was the big fat B word, but you do have some films that you are very excited about. Let's start with the one after Foxcatcher, the one I'm looking forward to the most, the great Sherlock Holmes, Benedict Cumberbatch starring in The Imitation Game. We just talked about this on the show when the trailer came out. What did you think?
It knocked me out. I thought it was the best movie there. It's a portrayal of Alan Turing. Maybe you've told your listeners this already. It's a portrayal of Alan Turing, the genius, and he was probably autistic and possibly mentally ill guy who cracked the Enigma German code during World War II, and in the process invented the first computer. So Benedict Cumberbatch plays Turing, and he plays it in a very complex way. And, of course, the guy himself was extremely complex. And Cumberbatch just, I think, nailed it. He was beautiful in that role. Keira Knightley plays the equally brilliant and almost complex in her own way, Joan Clark. And it's very psychologically nuanced film, tragic in its tale of Turing's being punished for being, air quotes, homosexual, despite having been a lead player in bringing about the Allied victory. It gets a bit predictable in the portion of the movie in which Turing is battling to get the job. But otherwise, the movie is beautifully done, memorable, and in my book, not to be missed.
Fantastic. Very much looking forward to this one. How about the other I think, probably fair to say, the big celebrity news, Rosewater, written and directed by Jon Stewart. How did that play?
It played very well. I was very excited to see it and Jon Stewart, which we got to, one of the fun parts was watching afterward, seeing Jon Stewart talk about it together with the real Maziar Bahari, about whom this movie is made, and then the star of the movie, which is Gael Garcia Bernal, who is just fabulous. It's about an Iranian journalist who lives in England and returns to Tehran to cover the controversial 2009 presidential elections. And then when he takes a video that shows some police violence, he's arrested and held as a, quote, CIA Zionist spy. To me, the surprise was that first-time director Stewart could adapt Bahari's book to the screen so well and do such a skillful job in telling this tale. There were wonderful performances by Gael Garcia Bernal as Maziar and Kim Bodnia as his torturer. And there were some wonderfully creative scenes that I've not seen similar scenes in other movies that Stewart did. One is he's kind of talking about our lead, Maziar, is walking along, talking about people in his life, and you sort of see in the windows that he's passing these sort of shadow images of these people as he's walking. And the killer scene to me, I loved this scene, was in jail. Maziar is in jail, and he's just been able to talk to his wife and learn the name of his soon-to-be-born daughter. And from the perspective of the camera that the torturers are watching him in, he's dancing in his cell. It is the most beautiful, sensitively done scene I've ever seen. It was wonderful. So I really recommend this movie. That scene alone is worth the price of the admission, but the whole thing is a very interesting story and wonderfully done.
Well, again, that's a relief to hear, because the trailer, frankly, was a weird cross between, strange kind of feel-good that we were concerned that maybe he wasn't going to really dive quite as deeply into the importance of the story itself, based on obviously.
He definitely dives.
Oh, that's wonderful. So those were the two big ones. You had you've got a list of 4 more films that you're excited to talk about. Let's jump into Dancing Arabs, film by Iran Riklis, written by Saeed Kashua.
That's right. Dancing Arabs was it's an adaptation of 2 largely autobiographical novels by Saeed Kashua, and who, by the way, does an Israeli comedy show on TV called Arab Labor. And so Riklis directed it. Tawfiq Barhom stars as Ayad, a genius Arab boy who wins a scholarship to a prestigious Jewish boarding school. And he faces a lot of battles there in terms of his cultural oppression as an Arab, his relationship with a Jewish girl that ends when her parents learn that he's Arab. And mainly the conflict in the movie is about his identity, the identity divide between Arab and Jew, and the choices that he has to make about who he's going to become in this bifurcated society. It's done with tremendous sensitivity, intelligence, and wit. And I think Barhom played Ayad with all of the gifts that his character Ayad holds. So I really recommend this movie. And we got to ride up in the gondola with the director and the star before we ever even saw the movie. So we didn't even know we were going to like it this well.
So he didn't catch you speaking ill of the film in the gondola, a little back chatter.
No, I didn't. No, but it did make me want to see the movie, and I'm really glad it did, because I'm not sure I would have gone otherwise.
Well, and he's a director of films that I have not seen, and so this is one that may spark a series. I think it's very interesting. How about Diplomacy? This is another one you'd emailed saying you were very excited about this film.
I was very excited. It's done by Volker Schlöndorff, and there was a tribute to him at Telluride. It's a masterful movie depicting the efforts of a Swedish diplomat named Raoul Nordling, who's played by André Dussolier, to convince the General Dietrich von Choltitz, played by Niels Arestrup, not to blow up Paris in the closing days of World War II. Hitler had given the order to blow up all of the iconic places in Paris, the Eiffel Tower, the Place de la Concorde, the Louvre, etc. And von Choltitz was going to do that until he had this long conversation with Swedish diplomat Nordling. It's a very compelling story. The acting is superb. And the dialogue, oh my goodness, it was intricate and beautifully written. And actually it had been a play, and you can see how it had been a play, because most of the movie is this dialogue, but it's not like, I don't know, My Dinner with Andre or something, where the whole thing is just one scene of 2 people talking. There's all kinds of World War II footage cut in and other scenes cut in, but it's just a wonderful movie, and the acting, oh my goodness, wonderful acting.
Volker Schlöndorff he is a director we've heard much of from The Tin Drum back in the late 70s, The Legend of Rita, and very well known for directing Dustin Hoffman and John Malkovich in Death of a Salesman, which was a legendary made-for-TV adaptation of that film. So he has an incredibly long history. I'm thrilled to hear that this film played so well.
And that's why they gave him a tribute at Telluride. He has a long life of really wonderful movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about Wild Tales? Damien Sifron.
Very aptly named Wild Movie. This is what I thought. It's a combination. It brought Twilight Zone together with Pulp Fiction and a little bit of the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie thrown in. It's quite a movie, just very, very funny. In a outrageous sort of way. It's a series of 4 outlandish revenge stories and revenge by someone who has suffered some kind of hurt, from the trivial to the very serious. And that's all I'm going to say. But if you go in, suspend your values and just laugh yourself to the end. It's really wonderful.
That's the best advice. Suspend your values. I love it.
Right.
That's the first one I'm going to line up for. The last movie we want to talk about, though, is one that I'm very curious about, 99 Homes, directed by Ramin Bahrani, but starring Andrew Garfield. You say Andrew Garfield was not Spidey in this film.
Absolutely was not Spidey. If I didn't know that he had played Spider-Man, I would never know he was an action hero actor. So 99 Homes was for me the most emotionally riveting. It was just the saddest movie and most compelling emotionally. It tells the story of 2 men during the foreclosure crisis of 2008. And Michael Shannon absolutely owns his role as the real estate broker, Ricky, who evicts the unemployed construction worker, Dennis, played by Andrew Garfield. Ricky soon seduces Dennis into the foreclosure business, and the process by which humans can break bad when faced with personal crisis unfolds in all its complexity. And the two lead actors are absolutely a thing of beauty to watch, although the movie is very painful.
Oh, goodness. Mm-hmm. Maybe, it's one of those films you see and you think, gosh, maybe too soon.
Right. You've got to get further away
we need to be
from
a
the
little further.
foreclosure crisis to really see what it did to people.
Yeah. Well, that is wonderful. Any other hot news from Telluride that you feel like is worth talking about?
I mean, I'll just say that I heard of some others that I saw that I liked. Tales of Grim Sleeper, I thought was really wonderful. I hear that Red Army was good. I hear that, and I heard a lot of people say that Birdman was really good, but I didn't see it. And then one that I heard mostly good things about, but one person didn't like so well, was 2 Days and One Night. So, Telluride is a wonderful place. First of all, it's the most beautiful place in Colorado, and it's just a wonderful place to be. But it's also so fun to be hanging out with all these people who care about movies. And one of the fun things that I did not know is that standing in line can be a great fun thing to do, because what you do is you meet people and you learn all about them and you learn all about their other movies that are there. I thought that the standing in line would be the downside. It was not. It was one of the 2 great parts, the other part being watching great movies. So,
well, this is wonderful, Mary. Thank you so much for volunteering your time to tell us your story of Telluride. We can't wait to see these movies. We'll put links in the show notes to all of the films that you've talked about, and we'll catch them as they start rolling out through 2014. Thank you, Mary Friedrichs.
Great. Thank you, Pete. It's my pleasure.
Well, that sounds fantastic.
Well,
I wish I was there.
You do wish you were there. Are you a little bit sad about Foxcatcher?
I am really sad about Foxcatcher because I think it looks really good, and I don't want to believe her.
Boring, she says, people said. Now, I'm not saying that's what she did. She admits she never saw the movie, but boring is what people were using in Telluride. That makes me super sad. So, anyway, still very excited to see the touring film.
Yeah, definitely.
Really right.
Very curious.
Let's do trailers. I'm going to do my trailer first, Andrew. It's Bird People. So Bird People. This is Josh Charles.
It's not the already sequel to Birdman.
No. I've been a fan of Josh Charles since the Old Dead Poet Society. I like that guy. I think he's an interesting guy to watch, and he did that one of my very favorite shows, Sports Night. You remember that one? Oh, that was a show. It was a Sorkin show that deserved a longer run than it got. It was a fantastic comedy, and so I am very excited to see him in this film. This one, this is a men of a certain age film. clearly. I mean, it's a guy who is dealing with some stuff in his life. And, there is something really seductive about the experience of watching somebody quit everything to try something new. And to go through, you really get a sense in this film of kind of the sorrow that he is dealing with and the wonder of meeting a beautiful French woman. And I'm generally in support of those things. Going through sorrow and meeting beautiful French women.
They blend together very well.
They do. They really do. And so this film is directed by Pascal Ferrand, written by Guillaume Barraud and Pascal Ferrand. I don't know very many of their films, but because they're all French, and I've only seen, I haven't seen any of his.
Right.
My French is terrible. And yet, this film stars the lovely Anaïs Desmoustiers as the lovely French woman, and she looks like worth catching in Bird People. So it looks like a good film.
It looks really. It has kind of a quirky look to it.
Yeah,
it does have that vibe of the midlife crisis sort of story that you were talking about, but it also has kind of this weird element of kind of the connection to the birds, and I'm not really quite sure how to read it. Like, is there a hint of some fantastical element to it? Yeah. It's almost like they allude to this moment where they're flying, but it's are they really? Is it just kind of in their imagination? What's going on there?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see the approach they take with it. It looks like it would be an interesting film, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. I am too. Comes out in the U.S. September 12th, 2014, so it's coming right up.
Sure is.
Yeah, your turn.
Well, I really am curious to see the film that I'm going to talk about, which is called Felony. And I think the reason that I'm so curious about it is because Joel Edgerton wrote it. This is it looks like a pretty much completely Australian film, which makes sense because he's Australian. But Joel Edgerton wrote it. And I mean, he has already proven himself as a writer of doing some shorts that he has written and stuff like that. And some films have been created from stories that he has written. But this is his first full-length screenplay that he's pretty much done on his own, pretty much has kind of done the whole thing from beginning to end, all by himself too. And so I'm quite excited to see it because it definitely has almost kind of that Dennis Lehane sort of vibe to it. It's got this,
right.
It's this detective who, coming home from work late one night, he accidentally, he's not paying attention to the road, and he accidentally hits a boy on a bicycle and leaves the kid in a coma. And he's guilty, and he feels horrible, but he calls his detective friends, and they basically kind of cover it up and help him conceal the crime. Meanwhile, his conscience is eating at him, and now he wants to come clean, and now these other detectives don't want him to because he's kind of put them all at risk, and now he wants to flip on it. And it looks like this really interesting, tense situation going on between these three detectives played by Joel Edgerton, Tom Wilkinson, and Jai Courtney. I don't know. There's something that really intrigues me about just the vibe of this story. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not, but the trailer itself right now I find very intriguing, and I want to believe that it is going to be something that is really tense and kind of holds me for the whole run of the film.
I do too. I found myself really intrigued by this trailer, and I'm excited to see Jai Courtney in this film. It looks like a more substantive role than the last Die Hard film, or
right.
It's one of these that it's a tale we've seen before, but the fact is, we tune in for the people at this point, and I think for a story like this, and I certainly think between Joel Edgerton and Tom Wilkinson, that's a compelling duo, and Tom Wilkinson is just fantastic. It's tough to find a film that
When is he bad in a movie?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to sort of give up the credibility to his choice to be in the film at this point. So I'm excited to see it. I think it looks terrific.
Yeah, it does. It looks really interesting.
It sort of has a Michael Mann vibe to it a little bit. I kept sort of thinking of Heat. Or it's that twist of men making bad decisions.
Yeah, it does have that sort of vibe to it. I think that's definitely running through it. So,
So very excited for this one. When's it hit?
It opens October 17th.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, Andy.
Is it time?
I think we need to go kidnap somebody and fall in love.
And make some pie.
It was just the two of us after my father left. I don't think losing my father broke my mother's heart, but rather losing love itself. Her hands started shaking beyond her control. Just leaving the house was difficult.
Wonder if you can give me a hand here.
You're bleeding. Mom, this is Frank.
He was kind enough to offer me a ride.
We really can't help you.
Frankly, this needs to happen.
Where do you want to go?
Your house.
Who are police looking for? Frank Chambers, an inmate at Cinchfield Prison serving 18 years for murder.
I'd be grateful if you let me stay till nightfall.
Isn't it against the law to hide a fugitive?
If someone were to come by, it would need to look like I kidnapped you.
How do I know you won't hurt us? I'm stronger than you think.
I've never intentionally hurt anyone in my life.
What happened?
Just know that there's more to this story than you'll see in that paper there. We won't be needing that any longer. When you have to say I tied you up, you won't be lying. Choke up on the bat, hands together. It's a good peach.
I should throw most of them away before they rot.
I have another idea. How's a fellow let a woman like your mother get away?
He got together with his secretary. He's infected. I'll send Henry for medicine.
Keep an eye out, all right?
I should go.
Maybe you should stay.
They're not going to stop looking.
I know.
There were two people who couldn't go out into the world, so they made a world with each other.
I'd take 20 more years just to have another 3 days with you.
I can't give you a family.
You already have.
Adele? Are you a friend?
Just a handyman. We're going to hit the road and never look back.
Well, withdrawal in this quantity is a little suspicious.
Morning, son. You want to tell me where you're going?
I came to save you, Adele.
Andy, this is, if there was ever, I don't think we've ever done a film that going into the week has been steeped in such controversy.
I don't know if we have. I don't think so.
People who are stymied by why we are talking about Jason Reitman's 2013 film Labor Day. You know,
2013, but really 2014 for the vast majority of the world.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah. So it's a pretty recent film. Why again are we talking about it?
Well, we did a few Jason Reitman films,
yes,
right? We talked about Up in the Air. Mm-hmm. We talked about Thank You for Smoking. We've kind of avoided the Diablo Cody films because I have that issue.
Yeah, because if you're...
that I've discussed.
Phobia.
Is it a phobia?
I need fruit.
I don't know what it is exactly, but yeah, it's so we've kind of avoided those films, and
neither of us had seen Labor Day.
Neither of us had seen this, but when we were assembling our list, and this was at the end of last year, before the movie had even opened, is when we put our list together, and we were looking for a film to fill a slot, and we're like, hey, Labor Day would be a great movie to talk about on Labor Day.
On Labor Day, right.
We need to fill that slot. And it would be a continuation of our Jason Reitman without Diablo Cody series.
So I think it's fair to say that this is a pick of convenience for us, and we roll the dice.
That's what it was.
And
Yes.
We have had, I think it's fair to say that the blot score comes down hard against.
Yeah, I feel like the blot score is very similar to the blot score, of course, is Ben Lott's opinion of the film,
who never writes before the week, and he's taking a sort of an activist role this week.
Yes, he really. I think this put him on the attack when he watched this film. He really wanted to just, knife somebody after watching this film. Clearly, Josh Brolin's Criminal was not criminal enough for him, so he wanted to take up the mantle. Yes, and quite a fervent review opposed to this film that he put up on our Facebook page.
Yes, you can find that on our Facebook page. It's worth reading. And so we've had our own hoist by our own petard. Our own people have come out. From our own film board thugs have come out and curious as to why we're talking about this film. And so I ask you, Andy, out of all of the fervor leading into our conversation about Labor Day, how did Reitman's Labor Day hold up for you?
Well, and I'm going to begin this with the caveat that you also put us in a spot last week by essentially a preemptive strike of a negative review before we even.
What did I say? Because I didn't see. I hadn't seen it.
No, but you had read that review of that other podcast.
Oh, the Flophouse did Labor Day, and that was I apologize for that. That was a spoiler. The Flophouse is a fantastic podcast where they only do movies that suck, and by their regard, their, and so they had done an hour on the failings of Labor Day, and I thought that was ironic that 2 weeks before we do our show, this podcast dedicated to failure has done this very movie.
Yes, exactly.
So back to you.
Well, back to me. I will be honest. I kind of liked it.
And I totally saw that coming.
I know, and I totally knew you would see that coming.
And so, what does that do for you? I mean, do you have some sort of a surprise spoiler for me about your opinion that you kind of liked it, but
I kind of liked the movie, but I do acknowledge that there are problems with it. There are things that I think aren't working in its favor. But I think there actually is a lot of stuff that is working in its favor. And I will get into all of that. But I feel like there is an interesting element to this story that I kind of fell for. I really enjoyed the characters, and I enjoyed this emotional journey that they all take over this long weekend in sweaty New Hampshire.
Yes. Okay. I'm actually, here's a spoiler or a surprise twist for you. I'm actually probably closer to you than you think on this film. And I know you came into this thinking that I'm going to hate it. And I'm not going to lie to you. There's a lot of stuff in here I do hate. Yeah. But I found myself liking the Reitman-ness of it. Mm-hmm. Much more than the actual execution of the story itself. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I think I get where you're going with that.
Well, because there's this. This is one of the things he does, right? That he has a sense of. I think a pretty good sense of the gray area in people, right? That there is this. One of the things he said about Up in the Air was that, one of the things that is so fascinating about stories like this is that it's interesting to tell a story about people who are finding commonality with strangers that they wouldn't find with people they know very well. Right? That it's interesting in his view as a filmmaker to throw these people who are, wildly different by all regard, throw them together and just roll the dice and see what happens. And I think you get that in Up in the Air. You get that in sort of these transient relationships with strangers. And I think Up in the Air really executes on really nicely on the perils of those kinds of relationships. And I think you have him doing that again in Labor Day. It's this film about a prisoner. He's on the lam, and he kidnaps this family, this mother and son. And essentially holds them sort of, it's a Stockholm Syndrome thing. He holds them hostage, they fall in love with him, and become a family. And that's sort of what happens in the film, and I'm wildly sort of understating the plot, but that's kind of what happens. And I like the intention of those relationships. I like the idea that he is throwing this criminal together with this man. They're both supremely damaged people, and we get to see sort of what happens and how that plays out. I like the intention of that relationship. I like the fact that there really are. I mean, there's no good guy, no bad guy. I mean, if there's any bad guy in this film, it's like the 14-year-old girl who the son always meets in a ditch, I mean, but it really kind of capitalizes on the gray area in all these people and the role that that past damage plays on our future relationships. I like that. I like the fact that he sort of lives in this gray area. And then we get to sort of the practical kind of execution, and I feel like this film falls short of what I love about Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking. It falls short on the execution, and I think maybe that's I don't know why that is. Part of it is the film I don't feel like can make up its mind. You had asked me, actually, I'm interested in your intention here. You'd asked me if I would watch it with my wife, what my wife thought of it. What were you going with there?
Well, I'm just curious because there's, I think, definitely a difference of viewpoints when a man looks at a film like this and a woman looks at a film like this. My wife, I mean, I can be a bit of a sap, so it's film like this I can fall for easily. But it's definitely a film that she really fell for. She really loved the stories. She really got into the characters, and. Yeah. And so I was just wondering if you ended up watching it with your wife, if she ended up kind of, in that same boat, or if if it was just kind of, just happened to be my wife as opposed to kind of the way that a woman might see the film.
Well, I don't know if you could characterize my wife as a woman then. I mean, she hated it. She didn't want to watch it all the way through. And I think part of the reason she didn't want to watch it is because of this sort of identity crisis in the film, that she felt like the thrillerness of it, it was not characterized. She didn't go in expecting this sort of the thrillerness of it, and when it was sort of a thriller that didn't really pay off as a thriller, it became a romance built on a foundation of wild inconsistency, and so she walked away not wanting to watch the end of it. Like she just really didn't like it. So I can't argue the point with her. I mean, I felt like there was some of that inconsistency too. I had a really hard time sort of figuring out what the film was going for.
Well, and see, that for me was, and maybe that's just, a different way of looking at the film, is like, I never actually saw this film as a thriller. I never saw this. I mean, yes, it has kind of an element of, okay, he's a criminal who has broken out, and he takes his family hostage so that he can kind of hide and get away from the law. But there are tense moments when he, grabs the kid's neck and is like, frankly, this has to happen. Mm-hmm. As he's telling Adele that she needs to take him to their house so that he can kind of get away. But it never struck me as this is a criminal on the lam thriller, and it always struck me as a kind of just a romantic drama that had some tense moments in it. And maybe that's kind of the reason that it worked better for me, is because I never saw it as this hardened evil criminal going out and doing all of this sort of stuff, and the big, the big tense ending and all of that. For me, it was always about the relationships, and it was always about these people who had all kind of suffered a loss of some sort. all relating to other people, whether it's her losing her babies through miscarriages, and then her husband, whether it's the son losing his father, or whether it's his character losing his wife and child. They've all had this kind of this familial loss, and through this situation, they're all good people. They've just are in situations where they're not necessarily. He's a criminal. He's an escaped convict, but he was never a criminal. He was never a bad guy. He was a military husband. His wife had been cheating on him. He accidentally killed her, and he was in prison because of that. It was all kind of this accidental thing. So it's not like he was ever a bad person. I know that was a fault that Ben had with the story, is that, as a criminal, he's just not bad enough. He's not a criminal. I'm like, well, he doesn't have to be a criminal. He made mistakes. It ended up, he got stuck in prison because of that. But here he is now in this story about trying to find a way out, and in the process running into somebody who happens to be somebody that he can kind of have this connection with. And that worked for me because I never went into this seeing it as a thriller.
I have to know, Andy, how did you go into this movie not seeing it as a thriller?
Well, it's funny. Ange and I, we were talking about this in the trailers, and we're like, gosh, what was the trailer for this? Because we couldn't remember what the film was trying to sell itself as. And we went back and we watched the trailer. No, the trailer that we saw was 100% love story. There was nothing thrilling in the trailer at all. I mean, yes, it's a guy who is, the whole premise is he's an escaped convict who takes his family hostage so that he can hide out. But it's never portrayed as a thriller. It's never portrayed as cops are out hunting for him and all that. It's all portrayed as they have this connection, they fall in love, they're making pie, and it's all about the relationships. And that's the trailer that I saw. So I never went into this looking at it as a thriller.
Man, that's not how even if we saw the same trailer, and I don't, my recollection of the promotion for this thing was centered on the hostage angle, right? It was on the thrilling sort of crime piece of this convict who takes a family prisoner. And I don't remember anything else. I certainly don't remember the romance angle. And so when I saw the film, my expectation was, like, as Ben says, and as many people say in their reviews, that really, I mean, if you saw the trailer, the film, could have been 15 minutes, right? All the thrilling stuff was 15 minutes. And I can totally see how if you go in expecting this to be a romance, then the rest of the stuff is setting. But if you go into it expecting it to be a thriller, and what you get is the bridges of Madison County, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, and that is a very interesting point as to how do they sell a film. Now, I don't know, maybe there are a couple different trailers out there that people are looking at. Oftentimes they will do that, where they'll cut films. They'll have kind of, okay, this is the trailer that's cut this will be the A trailer that will attach to all the other kind of romantic dramas and the romantic films that'll kind of draw the women in, and this will be the kind of the trailer that focuses on the thriller a little more to try to draw the men in, and they'll have the different variations of the trailers, and they'll often do that to try to sell a film to different audiences. And it's entirely possible that this is a case of that, where the trailer that we watched happened to be the one that is very much focused on the romantic side of the story, and it touches on the premise of the story, which is, criminal takes a family hostage in order to hide, and in the process falls in love. But it really focused on the romance through the whole trailer.
That's fascinating to me. What's your stance on it? Because some of the I don't know, some of the hue and cry of this film deals with Kate Winslet's character, and her sort of part of the fantasy of the film, of the setting of the film, is that this relationship develops over the course of so few days, right? I mean, it really takes place over this weekend.
Yeah.
And that she, these two people they're damaged, they're like these puzzle pieces that are sort of, in the world of the film, destined to fit together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the backlash in the film is that it is somehow kind of misogynistic, right? That it's totally diminishes her role, or Kate Winslet's character's, Adele's role as somebody who is they're just wrongly portraying her weakness, and that's part of the damage of the film. It's like there is the romance has no integrity. What's your take on that? It sounds like you bought the whole thing.
Yeah, well, that's an element of the story that I that whole Stockholm syndrome element of the story. I mean, I always find it a little difficult to buy into kind of that element. I mean, I'm one of those, like I said, I'm a little bit of a sap. I am all for true love at first sight, like all of that sort of stuff. Those stories, I can totally buy into those stories. I can believe it in real life. I think love is one of those things that can randomly happen at any moment and you're never expecting it. I think that they portray that in films all the time, and people buy into it. This is a film where they portray that, where this bond between these two people, they portray that, where there's a connection between these two people. They sense it right away, even if it is this tense situation of having to tie you up and all of that. It's one of those things where I'm willing to buy into it for the sake of the movie, even if it is one of the elements that I think is one of the weaker elements of the film, where it's like, okay, you've got to buy into the fact that this woman, this guy comes in forcibly into her house. She is willing to, she hides a knife in her dress. She's willing to kind of step up and fight this guy because he's a threat to her and her son, and she's kind of the mother bear willing to kind of attack if she has to, only to have kind of the tables turn on her
in 12 hours.
Well, yeah,
right.
But that's the nature of these stories. And
yes.
I mean, people buy into that all the time. And I'm willing to buy into it in this film because, and maybe it's because I buy the actors. Maybe it's because, I sense that need between these two characters and that bond that they develop. However, I do think it is one of the weaker elements of the story.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, I think Josh Brolin, he's just such an interesting actor to watch. I enjoyed watching Josh Brolin work, and I don't think he lets down in this film.
No, not at all.
And I feel like, probably my affinity to these two people as actors really is what allows me also to get over some of the challenges I have with it. But the fact that I think the story weakness for me is the fact that this romance is built on such an unbelievable set of emotional and historical coincidences, right? That they would both have such radically similar past losses that and it's told through such a convolutedly executed set of flashbacks with, I think, younger actors who look too much alike. The male characters look too much alike. I found it really difficult to track the history of the film. And so that made it difficult by the time I get into the third act not to think, you've got to be kidding me, around every corner. I just kept saying that, you've got to be kidding me. And so that was a challenge for me. I felt like it was not a well sort of edited or architected flashback. The utility of the flashback, I think, was not executed well.
And that's an interesting point. The flashbacks, I didn't have problems with the flashbacks themselves. The construction of them. I actually liked the way they played throughout the film, but my problem with them, and it sounds like it definitely is a problem that you had as well, was figuring out whose flashbacks they were.
Right. Yes.
because the guy definitely looked like Josh Brolin, but also I kept going, okay, but is it her flashback? Because she kind of looks like Kate Winslet. So whose flashback are we watching here? And it threw me for a little bit.
At one point, I thought the baby was supposed to be Kate Winslet. Right, I was 2 generations, before the film.
That was a serious flashback.
Serious flashbacking.
Yeah. So that was definitely something that I think could have used a little finessing, is the way that is perhaps the casting of the girl could have been a little different to separate her from Kate Winslet a little more. But I mean, I think the guy looked like Josh Brolin for sure. And so that, initially led me to think that it was his, until I saw the girl and started thinking it was Kate Winslet's flashbacks. And then it got really confused.
Yeah.
But once I figured out whose they were, then it really wasn't much of a problem. But that does go to talk about the nature of story construction, which I think is a very interesting one to discuss in context of this film, because not only do we have flashbacks, which work for some, don't work for others. I think it seems to not work for more people than work. But the other interesting element that they throw into the story that I don't like at all in this film is the voiceover. As much as I love Tobey Maguire's voice, I think he does have a great voice for voiceover. He also just
You're going to talk about how it fails the story.
Yeah, I mean the nature of voiceover, I think, is a really tricky thing to balance when you're a screenwriter, because you're always trying to find ways to show, don't tell. That's kind of what you look for in a story. Now, with a voiceover, what happens is you're just telling. There can be great ways to do voiceover where you're not necessarily falling into that trap. And I am a fan of voiceover when it works. There are plenty of films out there that have fantastic voiceovers that really work to carry the film and add to the film without duplicating efforts of what's happening on screen. And that's where this film really kind of, not the film itself falls apart, but the story structure kind of fails a little bit, is that I feel like Reitman wasn't trusting what was happening in the story enough, and felt he needed to emphasize it more by having this voiceover and having this kind of this it becomes kind of this, bookend as we kind of come to Tobey Maguire as a kind of grown Henry later at the very end of the film, telling us this story. And I just didn't feel like we needed it there. And there's so many times where it's like, it's lines like, he fixed our stairs and he fixed our stairs and she taught him to dance or something.
While he is fixing stairs and they are dancing.
Yes, we're seeing it all. And it's just like, and that's I do like Tobey Maguire. I think his voice works well. Great Gatsby, I think his voice, anytime he's doing voiceover, it's compelling to listen to for me, but it's just not necessary here. And I think that is one of the big failings of this story. And I don't know. I would be just very curious to look at this film without voiceover and see if it ended up having any sort of different reaction with people, if that was the thing that really kind of made them feel like this film is just, too much.
I absolutely agree. And I think what's so interesting about it, if you get rid of the voiceover that is just duplicating the action on the screen, which is just it's nonsense, what you're left with is voiceover that ends up, when you get rid of it, you end up having a more cerebral experience with the film, right? You end up getting to let the actors figure out how to tell the story through, how they're portraying these characters on screen. We get to see how damaged, Adele is as a result of the divorce when Henry's dad left him, rather than Henry saying, "I think she was damaged when my dad left us." We get to see it and we get to interpret their relationship, historically through the actors' portrayals. I think it really, in this case, it was really superfluous. I wonder what your take on this is. Do you think that voiceover comes in? Is voiceover a natural crutch, more so when it comes to adaptations in this genre?
Well, and that's exactly what I was wondering, because I have not read this Joyce Maynard novel that this film is based upon, so I don't know. I know it's told from Henry's point of view, but I don't know if it's kind of in his head, and a lot of this came out of that. I'm not quite sure, but it does feel like that is a potential trap that you can easily fall into when doing adaptations, because of the nature of a novel and how you're so much more inclined to get into the heads of your characters in a novel. And when you're translating that to film, there's definitely a line there that you have to figure out how to cross. Do you trust your actors to do it, or do you kind of get the voiceover to kind of tell you everything? And it's interesting because when you look at Reitman's other adaptations that he's done that we've talked about, his films, they've been about much more cynical people. They've been films about that have a much more comedic bent to them, and there's a little more of a sharpness to them. This one is a very I don't want to say simple story, but it is kind of a very simple story, even though it deals with complex emotions. And I mean, Reitman himself admitted that this is a very different film for him. He said it deals with complex drama, and I may not nail it on this film. It may be just my first step. And I think that he's right about that. And I'm wondering if the voiceover came from him as a writer, uncomfortable with this type of storytelling, and uncomfortable and unsure about, are people going to get it if I don't put it out there for them? And that's why the narrator ended up getting added in. And I don't know. I'm not in Reitman's head, but I really feel like when you have actors like Kate Winslet, Josh Brolin, and even Gattlin Griffith, who I have to say is an amazing actor as a young kid. I mean, I thought he brought so much to the screen. I didn't need that. I didn't need voiceover.
I didn't need it, and I found it really distracting. And to second your vote, man, that Gattlin Griffith, I thought he was really terrific. Really compelling on screen. Yeah,
amazing eyes, and he is a great actor who already I'm not sure how old he is. Let's see. No, I still don't know how old he is. He is the sort of actor at a young age who already knows to kind of be silent and to just let his face do the acting without having to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's 15 right now, so yeah, young kid.
Others who stick out to you as we plow through this thing. Poor Clark Gregg.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy seeing Clark Gregg in most anything. I mean, he's a fun actor to see. It was interesting, his relationship flashback. I mean, this is a terrible thing to compare it with, but there's almost like this sense of Up when you watch the little story montage of his relationship with Kate Winslet as they're having their relationship. Everything seems hunky-dory. They're excited about having babies. She has a miscarriage. That she gets pregnant again. Everything seems hunky-dory. She has another miscarriage, and it just kind of goes downhill. And I don't know why it struck me that kind of was like Up. I mean, that's probably a terrible comparison because Up is a magnificent relationship montage. But
that's really funny.
I do like Clark Gregg, though. I mean, and, I think he brings enough into the story to be that absent father who just doesn't quite know how to connect the right way with his son.
Yeah, I agree. I feel a little bit at the end that he's written off as the jerk. And I think that's unfortunate. Because clearly there was some complexity in their relationship, and I think his "why I left" speech ends up being too simple. And it's unfortunate because I think that diminishes the relationship that he's able to have with his son, and obviously there is some trouble there. I didn't like that angle. I didn't feel like that was particularly rewarding. I understand why it happened the way it did, and I think there is a way to justify that. They need to have that awkwardness in their father-son relationship, in order to make Henry's affinity toward Frank stronger. Mm-hmm. But I still found that it undersold the complexity of their of their divorce and of Adele's problem.
Well, and I'll say what I actually liked it for that reason, because I don't know, people don't know how to explain themselves very well, and I thought that was actually a great scene between him and the older Henry when we see him as the 16-year-old version, mm-hmm. Where he's giving him that talk, and it feels incomplete, which is, I think, kind of what you're saying. But what I liked about that is the fact that I think that's speaks very honestly to a lot of conversations parents have with their kids where they're trying to talk about kind of an emotional thing. And it's just like, especially coming from his character, who clearly, I mean, he couldn't handle Adele and her breakdowns from all of the damage that had been caused to her by the miscarriages. And here he is now unable to communicate with his son. And I liked that element of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can see it. I'm disappointed when it felt undersold.
Yeah,
I totally see
your
it.
point. I can see your point too.
I got to tell you, when you think about this as a thriller, let's go back to pretending it's a thriller.
Okay.
Right smack dab in the middle of the film, we have this sequence where the talented Brooke Smith plays Evelyn, brings her son, developmentally disabled son, to the house, and just kind of tosses him into the house, says, "You got to watch my son. I got to go deal with this other thing," and leaves him there. And they end up having a wonderful day of baseball with the son, and they play and everything. And then Evelyn comes back to pick up her son at the end of the day. During the newscast, Frank is hiding upstairs, and during the newscast, they're talking about the fact that this escaped convict is in the wild, and the son, played by Michael Fowler, is screaming, the name of Frank, but he can't say much else. And Evelyn turns around and screams at him and slaps him hard in the face.
Yeah. That
was a horrifying sequence to watch.
It was. It really was.
Of all of the thrilling that went on, let's assume it's a thriller, that was the most thrilling sequence in the film for me. I thought that was really... I really enjoyed it. I mean, I found it a really, just in terms of a cinematic moment, I thought the characters on screen at that moment really owned it.
Oh, absolutely, because you never know where that scene is going.
Yeah,
and I thought it was. I mean, it was a very tragic end to that scene when you see how she treats her son and disregards what he's actually trying to say.
Yeah,
but it built the tension so brilliantly, the way that Barry figures out, kind of puts two and two together, and he's saying it, and it's right there, and she just disregards it, and it really, I agree. I mean, it was a brilliant scene, and it's just, and it the way that it ended, it's just like heartbreaking, as much as we, the audience, who are rooting for this relationship to work, are thrilled that that he wasn't found out.
Yeah. I see that, and because I went into it imagining more of a thriller, I walked out of that scene feeling like, wow, they just let go of an amazing opportunity, and they just washed their hands of it. And that was just sort of chalk that up on my scorecard of, you've got to be kidding me. So frustrating, but that sequence in particular, I thought was very strong.
Yeah. Well, and there are tense moments, and I think that's the difference of it being a thriller versus being a romantic drama that has tense moments in it. And for me, that tense moment worked also. And I think another one that worked really well is James Van Der Beek as the police officer.
Yes.
Wow. I have to say, I mean, I've never been a follower of James Van Der Beek in any of his shows or any of his films. Not somebody I've ever really kind of kept track of. But I have to say, it's like, if he plays more roles like this, I would be a huge fan, because I thought he was fantastic in this. I bought him, and he was that good-natured cop who was there but brought that tension, and I don't know, he worked really well for me.
I know, and again, yeah, exactly, and it chalk it up onto another one of those opportunities, kind of washed. I wanted more. I found myself weirdly wanting more James Van Der Beek. Why can't I have more Van Der Beek? And I've never, ever in my life said that.
Yeah.
Ever.
But I tell you, after watching this, I'm like, man, he could be everywhere if he was just doing roles like this, because he works really well.
Were you a Dawson or a Pacey? Tell the truth.
I've never even seen that show.
Liar.
That's what I said.
Liar.
I have
You're
never...
a liar.
I don't even
Liar.
know what you mean really when
Liar.
you say that.
All right. Where were we?
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons.
Jason Reitman's Lucky Charm, who appears in all of his films, has his one fun little scene with his wonderful comb over as the peach bearing neighbor.
Yes, he wants to talk to Mom about something.
Yes.
I wonder what that is. J.K. Dirty old lech.
Take a bite of peach.
He was kind of in and out. It was good to see him on screen.
Yes.
Who else? Bridget Fleming as the young bad influence.
Yes, she's an interesting face, and she brings an interesting element to the story that was fun to see, because they're definitely, one element of the story that we haven't talked about much is this kind of sexual awakening that young Henry is experiencing right now. Paying attention to the bra strap under the girl's shirt sitting in front of him in class, paying attention, like looking at the Glamour magazine to check out the hot woman on the cover. He's at that age where he's just starting to have his awakening, and what I really liked about that is that you get this character that he's attracted to in Bridget Fleming, who really is a very broken character because of what she has actually gone through in her own life. And now he is torn. I think it creates an interesting dynamic for him, because he's torn between his attraction for her and what she's actually telling him, and how he needs to escape this situation where he may want it there, but he's trying to figure out what really is the right thing,
Yeah. But you see, this is another one of those elements where, like, she brings in more thriller.
Well, you think so?
I do, because the first time we see her, the first time we have a substantive conversation with her, she's like doing legal research, about some sort of a what do they call it when you
young adult freedom or something like that. What are her rights?
What are her rights as a young person against her parents, and that just sort of brings in an angle of antagonism, and as soon as she figures out, as they're walking down the ditch, and she figures out, oh, it's him. You've been telling me this story about this guy that I've been calling a sex predator, and now I get it. It's the guy, the runaway. You are harboring this runaway, and that just screams thriller. And of course, it all sort of unravels after that, for a number of different reasons, and I don't think we're ever, and maybe you're clear on it. For me, it's the moment when it unravels is the bank. But when she goes to the bank and has an extremely difficult time getting all that money out of the bank. But is there a period? Do you feel like you walked out of this film knowing what it was that got the police? Was it the note that Henry left for his dad?
I think it's when the neighbor comes back over to come into the house.
Oh yeah. See, I'd even forgotten that happened.
Yeah, when Evelyn sees him, because I think that there's definitely a moment of recognition when she's talking to Frank as he's fixing light bulbs and stuff.
No,
but you're right. I mean, there's a lot of potential moments. Is it the officer as he's kind of helping them? He picks up Henry and takes him home, but then is getting this sense of some weird vibe that's going on at their house. He doesn't quite know what it is. Is it the fact that she's acting funny at the bank and withdrawing all of her funds? There's a couple different things, but I think that it's Evelyn. I think that's the moment.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Okay. Who else do you want to talk about? Anybody else in the film that you feel like we need to call out?
I think we kind of covered all of them.
All right. And have we talked enough about Jason Reitman as director and writer of this film?
Just, I think that I do agree with him that this does feel like a film where I really enjoy the way that he directs films. I enjoy the way he works with characters in films. I do feel like this is kind of a growing curve for him still. I mean, like I said, I do like this film, but I do feel like he's still in his growing phase for telling this sort of story that is a much quieter sort of story, much more, focus on the actors and their faces rather than just all the clever lines that characters are saying. So other than that, I don't know if I have much more to say about Reitman.
Yeah, I think I pretty much covered my Reitmanisms in the beginning. I think what I really like about this film is it very much feels like a Jason Reitman film. It feels like he's dealing with the sort of character and cultural elements that are typical to Reitman films, whether they're sort of comedic or oddball or in this case now, drama. And so I really like that. This doesn't feel, insofar as, oh my gosh, what a strange turn Jason Reitman has taken with this film. It doesn't feel to me like a strange turn or a surprise at all. It feels very much like it fits within his canon. There are lots of "you've got to be kidding me's" throughout, and I think those are story problems more than anything else. But that may be we may be able to write those off to the book and a poor adaptation. But again, like you say, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that he does tell very compelling character stories. I'm always drawn to, well, I shouldn't say always. I'm generally drawn to the characters in the films that he is telling. I think he's got a good sense of connecting with the actors and finding a way to make them comfortable enough to really bring a lot of honesty out. And I think there is a lot of honesty coming out of these characters. There's an amazing earnestness with all of these actors as they tell this story. I mean, you have to go into a film like this, when you're making it and telling it and acting in it, you have to be in that emotionally vulnerable place where you're willing to just completely allow the nature of this love story to kind of wash over you. And it can be a very challenging thing, especially in the modern times, as cynical as they are. And I think he is a director who does make his actors as comfortable as they need to be in order to bring forward amazingly honest performances. And regardless of what people seem to think of the film, like I've looked through a lot of reviews, and generally people all feel that Kate and Josh bring an amazing honesty to these characters, even if they didn't like the film.
Yes, absolutely. That was my sense too. The film is pretty evenly split in terms of those who are fans versus those who panned it. But you're right. They like the characters. They don't like the fact that it's just in some cases I get the feeling that this film came maybe 15 years too late. That it really missed its window for these compelling kind of romantic dramas that walk too much into the I've already mentioned Bridges of Madison County, Nicholas Sparks. Like they may have missed their window,
or maybe even going back even farther. I mean, I've seen a number of reviews, people comparing this to All That Heaven Allows, Douglas Sirk's film from 1955, which is it definitely is that sort of that heavy romantic drama about a couple and the work of trying to connect.
Yeah. But ultimately, I don't really want to see it again, and I don't feel like I need to see it again. But I am curious in what would have been sort of a scenario had I gone into this really imagining it as a romantic drama, as you did. I wonder if I would have liked it at all.
Yeah.
Because generally, I think I'm going to walk away from this film saying I like the intention of Reitman. It feels like a Reitman film. I didn't like it.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
and see, I liked it, and but again, it's not a film that I would reach for again.
Yeah.
But if it's on, I don't think I would turn away from it.
Let me say this.
I think the characters draw me in enough where I would actually just sit and I would watch it again if it was on.
All right. I will not be actively encouraging people not to see it. How's that? That's my position on this film.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. But you should go in with your eyes open, people. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk numbers?
Before we do, I just is there any crew that you wanted to talk about?
Not really.
Okay.
No, I mean, I didn't feel like there was anything, the cinematography by Eric Steelberg, I didn't feel like there was anything particularly novel about this film. We've talked about, Steelberg, I think in the past, I think we've talked about him with Up in the Air. I didn't feel like this film introduced any brilliant new, or novel ways to look at a scene. You?
No, but I will say I did find it a gorgeous film to look at. I mean, I thought that they shot it beautifully. I really just loved it had this kind of sumptuous air to it, which did bring me back to kind of like the Douglas Sirk sort of feel. It felt very autumnal. It had kind of that, even though it was lush green and everything, but there was kind of that pleasant afternoon light that kind of seemed to kind of permeate everything within the film.
Yeah, and I think they really celebrated that in the copious use of montage. That I think, particularly cooking and when they were cleaning the house at the end, they're working with the brooms after it's pretty, and the house ends up being pretty sparse, and they do play with light fairly well, and I found myself really taken by some of the beautiful reflections off the floor that they managed to capture that I thought were really nice. Yeah. I agree with you there.
Yeah. And I have to say, Rolf Kent is a composer who I kind of can take him or leave him, but I really enjoyed the score for this. I mean, I don't have it as a kind of a separate soundtrack that I've listened to, but I felt the music really brought something to the film that, I mean, I don't know, it really worked for me in context of the film. I liked that quite a bit.
That's interesting. I have no memory of the score at all at this point.
Well, it's not like I'm not walking around humming it or anything like that, but I am saying that in the context of the film, I was like, wow, I really enjoy what the music is doing for these scenes. So,
all right.
So it worked in that context.
Good. All right. I'll let you have that.
All right.
You'll always have the score.
I'll always have the score. That's right. And then one last little bit of interesting trivia that I found out.
The Internet Movie Firearms Database.
Yeah, that's right. Let me tell you what James Vanderbeek's cop was carrying. No, Joyce Maynard, who wrote the novel, who has written a number of novels. I find it very interesting that she actually dropped out of college to go. She had started a correspondence with J.D. Salinger and actually went to live with him for 10 months. And she wrote her first book at the time. And so I had no idea, but yes, she actually had this kind of relationship with J.D. Salinger for a while.
I did not know that. That is a very interesting find.
Yes, especially considering J.D. Salinger is such a notoriously hidden person. It just, I don't know. You hear about authors like that, and I just kind of assume that nobody has contact with them.
Yeah.
Which doesn't obviously make any sense, but I do find it interesting. Like, oh, look at that. Here's a person who actually had a relationship with him.
That is fascinating. It provides that sort of extra context to how, you think about J.D. Salinger and then you think, gosh, it makes me really want to read this book, particularly to see what the Salinger effect might be on the way she treats romance or, for example, coming of age. Why is that such an important angle?
Especially for her as a young girl.
Yeah.
She was dropped out of her freshman year of Yale to go actually live with him. And I guess they had been together for 10 months, and during kind of toward the end of the vacation or this period together, they were on a vacation with her and his 2 children from previous marriage. He said he didn't want any more children. She said she wants to have some children of her own, and at that point he ended their relationship immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. Just cut it off right there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Talk about a hard case.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. All right. Now, do you want to talk about numbers?
Now,
let's
talk about numbers.
All right.
So this film, in case you didn't know, did not do very well for itself, unfortunately. This film just really struggled to find an audience, and it's down toward the bottom of our films because it ended up being a film that ended up losing money at the box office. Labor Day cost it actually cost, what I found is $18 million to make. They actually spent $19 million on the prints and advertising. So like you hear quite a bit, they end up sometimes spending more on all of the marketing of a film than they actually spent on the film itself. So they ended up spending about $37 million on the film. Domestically, it made, what did it make? Almost $13.4 million domestically. Internationally, not quite $6 million. So a total of about $19.3 million is what it made. So it made back its prints and advertising budget.
Yeesh.
Yeah, so it ended up losing about $160,000 per finished minute.
That's sad.
Yeah,
you just don't like hearing that.
No, I mean we're always hoping that a film will do good and make its money back. But
I think at this point it's time for us to rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com and the flickchart.com/thenextreel. And that's where you will find our list of all of our top films and the bottom ones, but mostly the top ones. You should join Flickchart and friend us or like us, and then you can stack your films, and then we'll compare and see if we agree. Since we have to find a way to agree with each other every single week.
It's a struggle sometimes.
Let's do it.
All right, Labor Day or Carrie?
Carrie.
Yeah, I will go Carrie on that one. Labor Day or Taxi Driver? Oh, that's awesome. I love the place this puts you.
God. No, it's actually not that hard. I'm going to pick Labor Day on this one.
I'm picking Taxi Driver.
You got it. You can have it. See, I actually win either way. I get to make my choice of conscience, and
That's pretty funny. All right, Labor Day or Major League?
Major League.
I'll go Major League as well. Labor Day or The Blob? I would do Labor Day.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Weirdly, I think I would probably just leave Labor Day on if there were only those were the only two options. I would probably watch Labor Day. Okay,
Labor Day or Yee?
Labor Day.
I may do Yee, but again, it's so long. I'll pick Labor Day. Labor Day or the Hudsucker Proxy?
Hudsucker Proxy.
I would do Labor Day, but I'll give you the Hudsucker Proxy. Much to my chagrin. Labor Day or Bull Durham?
Oh, Bull Durham.
Yeah, do Bull Durham. All right, look at that. I went into this knowing this was not going to crack the top 100, and it certainly didn't. We're at 135 out of 148.
Just give me the 2 or 3 more that are behind it.
Well, we've got Yee Yee.
Yeah.
Key Largo.
Yeah.
We're No Angels.
Oh.
Christmas in Connecticut. All of our older films that appear at The Blob. And then we go to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which rightfully is down toward the bottom.
But it didn't beat Rush.
No. Well, Rush is at the very bottom.
Yeah. Didn't beat Rush.
No. As far as losing, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
That's fantastic. So that was our very short series, additional series of Jason Reitman. Adding that to our catalog of Reitman films, and where do we go from here?
And holiday films.
And holiday films. That's right.
We've got a few.
We've got a Labor Day holiday film. I wonder if that'll ever happen again. Where do we go from here?
We're going to start celebrating Halloween early. We're going to jump into kind of a long series of Stephen King films.
I'm glad about this.
I am too.
What's first? Are you going to say, or are you just going to let?
Yeah,
people
we're gonna start with The Shining.
Yeesh.
Mm-hmm.
Stacking them.
Yeah, the Kubrick version, not the made-for-TV version.
Oh, I better get that then. Psych.
Wah, wah.
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be a good one. And you know what? Wait a minute. So that's just next week. So I just need a very quick announcement. If anybody's listening to this and is coming to Portland for the XOXO festival, it starts, the festival is Thursday the 11th and Friday the 12th, and then the conference itself, Saturday the 13th and 14th. Please find me. I will be there on Saturday and Sunday. I don't know how much Friday I will. I don't think any time on Friday I'll be there. But I will be there Saturday and Sunday. I would love to connect with people. Anybody who's listening, going to be in Portland, look me up. Find me, Twitter, whatever. Let's connect.
Definitely.
Yeah. I wish you could come.
I do too. I don't know what I would do there, but...
Well, you just hang out with me and drink coffee.
Yes.
So that's pretty much what we do. And wear hipster glasses. You'd have to get new glasses. They need more hipster.
Right.
All right, I'm done. I got to go to bed.
All right. I am actually going to go make a pie right now.
Okay, this one I feel like I'm doing that's particularly on point. It's a 3-star review by Flannel Quilter. It's a one-liner.
I just have to say that's a great name.
Right?
Flannel Quilter.
Okay, not great. By the middle of the movie, I wanted to smack Kate Winslet. Weak women drive me nuts.
Okay.
I totally resemble that remark.
Judge much? That's pretty funny.
I don't need to. Flannel Quilter did it for me.
That's right.
Go for it.
Awesome. Mine is a 5-star review by Network Pro that says, a superb movie. Don't listen to critics. I was about to visit movie theater, spelled theater, with my wife and see the options. Labor Day seems okay, but I always review first some websites to see other comments and critics. Rotten Tomatoes doesn't have a very good reviews about the movie regarding users, but anyway, I give it a chance. Thanks God I do it. I love this movie. I highly recommend it. Network Pro.
Thanks God you do it.
Thanks God. Oh, Amazon.
Amazon. Thanks God, Amazon.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe's series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.